His weak body could not withstand the effects of strong drugs. Is there any way to cure the disease without harming her body? The man trembled with worry. Is there really still no hope? But So-min put his hand on his shoulder to comfort him. Don't be so depressed. The next time I come will be the time to cure her. A moment later, So-min left the hospital and returned home. He thought as he walked, he couldn't directly use what the masters taught to cure him. This is the first time. He remembered the image of the poor girl lying in the hospital, thinking, no wonder the great master said, Oriental medicine focuses on each person's own medicine. No matter how much experience and achievements you have, you can't arbitrarily prescribe to a patient. At this time, suddenly a voice rang out in the alley ahead. Be a little more obedient. If you don't tie yourself up a bit, how can she believe it? Oh, just be gentle. This caught So-min's attention. So-min stopped, wondering where he had heard this voice before. The voice continued to come out. Shut up. When you act, you have to act the whole play. Lao Tam, take out your phone. So-min silently pressed close to the wall, listening to the movements ahead. He stole a glance and realized that this was the voice of the couple at the fried chicken shop that afternoon. Why are they here? He raised his head and tried to climb up the wall to hear what was going on. Thinking so, he immediately clung to the wall. Then use your strength to jump up. Then, take advantage of the balcony to move closer to the other two people. While jumping, So-min imagined the look on his master's face when he realized he had eavesdropped. So-min, it's So-min. Why do you like to gossip like that? If this story spreads out, wouldn't it be a good idea? Will my masters laugh at me? Ignoring that, So-min saw the scene below. Below is a blonde-haired man and a few juniors tying up his fat lover. He asked his fat lover suspiciously. You once abandoned her. Will she really come? The fat woman replied. It only has one mother, me. It will definitely come. So-min looked at them and thought to himself. It seems like they are planning to do something bad. At this moment there was a voice behind the group of young men. Let her go. So-min was surprised when it turned out to be Tan Yen. Tan Yen shouted loudly. If not, I will report to the police. Only then did he realize that the rich woman who raised this bum was Tan Yen's mother. The fat lady trembled and begged Tan Yen. Yen Ni, I'm sorry for you. The boyfriend slapped her harshly and shouted. Shut up, Tan Yen shouted worriedly. Mom! The man stepped on the rich woman's stomach and threatened. Like I said on the phone. 1 million yuan in cash, we will release her. Tan Yen trembled and replied. I don't have that much money. I only have 200,000, the evil boyfriend said. 200,000. Are you looking for an 80% discount? He smiled and warned. Even if I agree, my brothers will not agree, Tan Yen loudly suggested. I can take her gradually, you guys let her go first. The man approached, grabbed Tan Yen's face, and threatened. Give it here. Do you think I'm an idiot? He said to Tan Yen. If I let your mother go now, and then you call the police, then won't we be screwed? Tan Yen asked worriedly. So what do you want? He immediately grabbed Tan Yen's hair and suggested. You are so beautiful, happy with the three of us. 1 million discount to 200 can also be considered. Tan Yen used her strength to resist. No, no, the evil mother trembled and pretended to beg. Yen Ni, just listen to him. Tan Yen resisted and was stunned as she heard her mother say. I've come to this point. Are you still unwilling to sacrifice yourself? A junior loudly announced. Big brother, I've blocked the road. She can't run now. Tan Yen was extremely scared at this time. Only then did the play end. The boyfriend helped his fat rich lady up and said, Wake up, good sister, no need to act anymore. Tan Yen was stunned. Acting? What do you mean? Are you guys lying to me? The evil mother now smiled cunningly, hugged her boyfriend and said, Honey, I agree with you. As long as you cooperate with me, I will still love you forever. Right? The boyfriend caressed his rich wife and whispered. Of course. If you don't love me, then who will you love? Tan Yen trembled at the scene before her eyes. She stepped back in fear, not believing what she had just seen. Then Tan Yen shouted. Mom, how can you treat me like that? So-min, who had been observing all this time, felt extremely angry. He thought to himself, clearly that man is just greedy for money. Tan Yen's mother doesn't know how to think? The first thing he did after being discharged from the hospital was collaborating with someone else to harm his daughter. Below, you see evil people approaching you. Tan Yen waved her hands in panic, warning that she had called the police. But her phone was quickly snatched by someone. They raised their voices and threatened, so try reporting them. On this side, the cunning mother is pleased. Daughter, don't blame me for being evil. Maybe this is love? The man now ordered. Up. Hold her. The two juniors immediately approached Tan Yen. Helpless, Tan Yen could only cower in fear. Now So-min jumped down and intervened. This man can't stand it anymore. With just one punch and one kick, he quickly defeated two juniors in an instant. Then So-min stood there, massaging his hands. Then he turned around and said to Tan Yen. Luckily I passed by, otherwise you would have been in trouble. Tan Yen raised his head and was surprised to see So-min. The boyfriend saw So-min and angrily shouted. You rotten boy, it's you again! Then he pushed the fat lady away, holding a knife in his hand and shouted. Today you ruined my good things. I haven't settled the account with you yet. Then he immediately rushed in and tried to stab So-min. Get one of my knives! So-min stood there, disdaining this guy's speed. Too slow. He gently gave him a painful slap on the ear. So-min said coldly. Just teaching you like that is not enough. So-min continued to use 2 fingers to press on his stomach. The boyfriend screamed in pain. What did you do? It hurts so much. So-min smiled smugly. I have sealed your meridians. Within half a year you will not be able to be a man, he asked in shock. What did you say? So-min came closer and put his hand on his shoulder. He coldly threatened. If you dare to cause trouble for Tan Yen again. Speaking of this, So-min flashed an evil smile. I will let you spend the next half of your life lying in bed, unable to move. Do you understand? This surprised the boyfriend and made him speechless. Then he began to beg in fear. Quickly remove the seal from me, the fat lady also worriedly asked. Honey, if I can't do it for half a year, then what should I do? Ignoring the other 2 people's worries, So-min walked over and held Tan Yen's hand. Then, he pulled her away. At this moment, the fat lady suddenly knelt down. She clasped her hands and begged Tan Yen. Yan Ni, please beg your man to unseal my beloved brother. Without him, I cannot bear it. Respect my love and I am your mother. Tan Yen went up angrily. She gave her a straight slap. She shouted loudly. From today, I no longer have a mother. She is not worthy. The fat lady still begged. Dear child, it's okay if you don't have a mother. Help my beloved brother remove the seal. Tan Yen tried to swallow her tears and ran away. So-min and Tan Yen then stopped to talk on a bridge. At this moment, So-yen lifted her sideburns, revealing her extremely beautiful face. So-min came forward to comfort her. I didn't call the police, leaving her the last bit of dignity, Tan Yen said sadly. Thank you. Since childhood, I have been abandoned by her. I thought I wouldn't be sad anymore. Even though I said before that I had no relatives, I desperately longed for relatives. Then Tan Yen contemplated the moonlight and said, I don't need it anymore. Having finished speaking, she suddenly threw herself off the bridge and fell into the river below. This action was beyond So-min's expectations. He quickly wanted to stop it, but it was too late. She threw herself down. On the bridge, the moonlight illuminates an area. 1 person on the bridge, 1 person falls. At this time, Tan Yen was extremely hopeless with this life. In life, her closest person also betrayed her. She no longer wanted to live. Not long after, near the apartment, So-min's voice said, Next time if you want to jump into the river, I suggest you take off all your clothes. That way at least you won't have to wash your clothes. At this time, Tan Yen was carried home by So-min. Tan Yen shivered from the cold. She asked, Why did you save me? When So-min heard that question, he suddenly thought, If I told you that I saved you because I wanted you to practice with my 7th sister, would you beat me to death on the spot? The 2 of them then went home. After showering, So-min wiped his hair and said, Don't do stupid things in the future, he advised Tan Yen. There is nothing more important than loving yourself. Tan Yen was embarrassed. Face down on the bed, she awkwardly replied, I can do that. Suddenly, Tan Yen sat up. She heard So-min's phone ring. So-min regretfully rang the phone. He put it on speaker, wondering who would still call him if it was late. Tan Yen coldly snorted, but in the midst of her feelings, she was interrupted. The new caller is Kai Han Swang, So-min happily said. It's 7th sister. It's so late, is something wrong? When Tan Yen heard it was a girl's voice, she showed anger. On the other end of the line, Kai Han Swang asked, How far are you pushing the matter of your roommate's yang-like physicality with me? Tan Yen asked in surprise. A roommate? Are you talking about me? So-min was dumbfounded by his carelessness. Then he quickly picked up the phone, turned around and went out to talk. Senior sister, please wait a moment. The signal where you are is not very good, calls keep jerking, many strange words appear. So-min thought worriedly. At this time, making such a strange request, it looks like the house is on fire and looting. On this side, Tan Yen also wondered what a yang-like physique is. A moment later, So-min said to his senior sister. Okay, I know. After the phone call, Kai Han Swang seemed to realize that So-min's voice was a bit sluggish. It seems something happened. Have you encountered any trouble? At this time, So-min turned around and said to Tan Yen. Sorry, I've made you wait for a long time. Tan Yen sat on the bed, smiled and said, It's okay. If there's anything I can help with, just say it directly. So-min sat down and began to explain. My sister has a natural physical defect, and you can cure it for her. You just need to practice together with her. He put his hands on his face and sighed. I know this is a very difficult request to accept. Even if you refuse, it is reasonable and reasonable. Yet Tan Yen agreed immediately, making So-min extremely surprised. Tan Yen smiled and said to So-min, I want to help you become your supporter. Your sister's voice is very pleasant to listen to. She is definitely a beauty. Tan Yen laughed. Perhaps I will be the one who benefits. So-min happily scratched his head and said, Okay. Thank you for your help. 7th senior sister was born with this disease. It would be great if you would help. He was somewhat appreciative in his heart. Her mood recovered much faster than he imagined. But Tan Yen continued. I have one condition. So Min immediately turned around and said. Just say it. As long as it's something I can do. Tan Yen's eyes immediately lit up and said. Tonight, sleep with me. This sentence startled So Min. He couldn't deny it. That night, the two slept in the same bed. So Min's eyes could not be closed. So Min felt uncomfortable and thought to himself. So we sleep together like this. On the bed, even though the two were lying together, they were blocked between them by a stuffed animal. A moment later, Tan Yen fell asleep, stirred, and rolled over to hug the stuffed animal. This method of blocking with a stuffed animal is probably not good. She hugged So Min's whole body, startling the new boy. Tan Yen's hand groped and touched So Min's chest. Her legs were resting on So Min's body, very close to his sensitive part. So Min blushed, confused. It's over. This is too close. Kai Han Swang's residence can see the whole city at night, extremely beautiful. At this time, Kai Han Swang appeared quite tired. She was worried about what So Min's side was saying. Then she turned around and looked out the window. Reassure yourself that if it's So Min, there won't be any problem. Because So Min is the chosen son of heaven. It takes 7 masters to seal 9 parts of destiny at the same time. Kai Han Swang sighed. She thought to herself. I've invested all my money and energy for many years looking for people with positive physiques, but I haven't reaped any benefits. Either the positivity is too weak, or the physique is not pure. She slowly opened the box, took a pill, took it, and thought. Little junior brother, there's only one roommate he's met by chance, and he has a rare Yang-like physique. This is just a part of her destiny. If the seal in her body is removed, then she got scared when she thought about that scenario. The scenario is that So Min will be overwhelmed by bad luck and die unexpectedly. Perhaps we have to wait until So Min is fully grown to be able to fuse his destiny. The next morning, dawn light shone into the room. So Min is now in pain all over his body because Tan Yen pressed him all night. Tan Yen slept soundly while So Min's blood was congested and his body was numb. The whole arm felt like it no longer belonged to him. The reason for this is that So Min did not do anything. Burning down the house and looting all night, just made a human-shaped body pillow all night long. So Min poked his own arm with his hand and thought, I really don't feel anything anymore. Blood cannot flow through it either. Then suddenly an idea came to So Min's mind. That's right. Na's blood plague originally could be treated with strong injections. But her body is too weak. The injection will definitely affect her heart. Once you enter the heart, you will definitely die. If we temporarily block the blood flow in the heart, cure the body first, and then slowly restore the heart, wouldn't that be okay? Thinking that, So Min jumped up and shouted. Such a simple method, why didn't I think of it? He forgot that Tan Yen was lying in his arms, causing her to be thrown away. Tan Yen woke up dimly. She rubbed her eyes and asked. What happened? So Min happily hugged Tan Yen's shoulder and said, Thank you for pressing on my arm all night. Thank you. Then So Min got up and greeted Tan Yen. I have something urgent, I'll go first. Tan Yen here was confused and didn't understand what So Min was thanking him for. Early in the morning, countless girls with big, round souls are jogging. At this time, So Min called Tae Duck. Mr. Tae, I have thought of a solution to treat Na. You are waiting for me at the hospital. I will be here right away. Chi-Dok happily asked. Really? That's great. So Min so happily ran to the hospital that he ripped off the skirts of passers-by. The girls with big souls who fell down were angry and scolded. Are you crazy? You ran so fast so early in the morning, are you reincarnating? When So Min heard that, he broke into a sweat and quickly apologized. While running, So Min was planning in his heart. This method can definitely cure Na. Then Tae Duck can become an effective helper for me in the city. So Min happily thought. He is so good at fighting, being a guard for my sect is definitely not a problem. The places where So Min passed by, the girls wore carpet dresses, revealing all their goods. So Min's heart was constantly happy, because the first step of establishing the sect that he had promised to the 7 masters was about to be successful. If discharged Special Forces soldier Tae Duck knew that So Min helped him to protect him, I don't know what he would think. At the hospital, Chi-Dok was surprised. Are you scared? Why did you come so quickly? Isn't it the morning rush hour? There's a lot of traffic. So Min wiped his sweat and replied. I ran 20 kilometers to get here. Let me check on Na's situation. Hearing So Min say that, Chi-Dok was stunned. Run here? Looking at So Min checking his daughter's pulse, Tae Duck secretly thought, what kind of person is he? His skills are no worse than mine. His endurance is terrifyingly good, and he even has superior medical skills. After So Min checked Na's pulse, he panicked. It's not good. Na's pulse is much weaker than yesterday. If she doesn't get treatment, I'm afraid Na won't survive tonight. Hearing that, Tae Duck ran back in panic and asked. Why is that like that? So Min quickly told Tae Duck. Quickly call Na's main treating doctor here. Please do surgery immediately. No need for them to do it. I will do it myself. Just borrow the operating room for a while and that's all. Chi-Dok quickly ran to call Na's doctor and introduced. He is Na's main doctor, Dr. Lam Vin. Dr. Lam Vin heard Chi-dok's announcement and asked So-min. I heard you want to use the operating room? What is your status? Outsiders do not have the right to use our operating room, So-min quickly replied. I'm also a doctor. Every patient must pay attention to the severity of the patient. Western medicine also has an emergency department. Dentistry is almost done. Can I borrow it for one? Later, can you treat Na-Na's illness? Dr. Lam Vin slowly took notes, and then asked again. Are you also a doctor? Which hospital? Show me your practice license. I'll call the hospital to ask for permission. Chi-dok lost his temper and rushed up to shout. My daughter is not going to make it through tonight. Are you still planning on asking for permission? Dr. Lam Vin replied a little impatiently. Or you could go find the dean yourself and talk. I only work according to the rules. Then he whispered to Tae-dok. You didn't complete what Mr. Chi assigned. I already know. This statement surprised Chi-dok. Then Lam Vin turned his head, smiled cunningly and threatened Tae-dok. Perhaps you have forgotten, if it weren't for Mr. Chi's help, your daughter would have died a long time ago. A powerful punch hit Dr. Lam Vin's face. So-min couldn't help but hit him and shouted. Someone like you is not worthy of being a doctor. Lam Vin was punched out of the hospital room. At the same time, some doctors passed by and saw it. Lam Vin painfully pointed at So-min and threatened. You like to fight, right? I'll go call security now. I also want to call the police. Outside, 3 other doctors were coming and were surprised to see this scene. One person asked. Lam Vin, what are you doing? The director is checking. What's the point of being so panicked? Someone immediately stepped forward to help him stand up. Lam Vin immediately waved his hand and shouted loudly. Director, you came at the right time. A patient's family member beat me. You have to take care of me. The doctors accompanying the director whispered to each other. Was it the patient's family beating someone again? What do they see us as? After all, what do they want the doctor to do to calmly talk? The director then asked. Which patient's family member beat someone like that? It turned out that the director was Tu-min Tui, the doctor who was at the fried chicken shop with So-min before. So-min recognized the familiar person, turned around and happily said, Tu-min Tui, is that you? Seeing that this kid dared to call the director's name directly, the surrounding doctors shouted loudly. You're really brave, you dare to call the director's full name directly. Even if you're the city's leader, you still have to call the director out. The director is a famous surgical expert in the city. How could he be so rude? Lam Vin smiled complacently. I didn't expect you to find your own way to die. Then you will die immediately. Tu-min Tui gently smiled and asked. Brother, is that you? Did you come to study today? Looking at the 2 people talking politely, Lam Vin wondered in surprise. Is the dean not angry? So-min calmly replied. No, his words were sharp. The doctors in this hospital of mine have no medical ethics. I don't want to become that kind of person. Lam Vin immediately pointed at So-min and loudly scolded. Director, he's talking nonsense. It's clear he's impersonating a doctor and wants to use the operating room. He can't get his practice license. If something happens, should we let the hospital be responsible? Tu-min Tui asked So-min again. What happened? So-min immediately responded. If we continue to delay treatment, this child will die. So-min immediately asked the dean again. Is it really that important to have a license to practice or not? Hearing that, the dean slowly began to ponder. Lam Vin still tried to attack So-min. You're a scammer, quickly go away. Otherwise, I will call the police to arrest you. Yet the director said. Immediately prepare the operating room. Then he asserted. Let him be the main surgeon. I will be his assistant. All the other doctors were surprised. Director, what did you say? They began to protest. Director, this young man's background is unknown. You cannot make such a hasty decision. If something happens, who will be responsible? Tu-min Tui solemnly decided. If something happens, I will take responsibility. A moment later, outside the operating room, the other doctors started to say, crazy. That's crazy. Lam Vin began to excite everyone. If this story spreads out, won't people from other hospitals laugh at it? Yet, just a short time later, the director emerged from his surgical outfit to everyone's surprise. Everyone asked, Director, why are you out already? Everyone shouted. What's wrong with that child? Could it be that young man made her? Tu-min Tui sighed and replied. That young man's treatment method, I have never seen before. Everything I can do has already been done. Staying in the operating room will only distract him. Then he turned serious and said, There is also one more thing. This statement surprised the doctors. He shouted at Lam Vin. The remaining indomethacin in her body was prescribed by the doctor who treated you, right? By prescribing this medicine to such a weak girl, do you want to take her life? Lam Vin was panicked and couldn't say a word. Chi-dok behind him lost his temper and grabbed his collar. He shouted loudly. So it's your horrible bastard who's playing tricks? Lam Vin quickly clarified. No, that's not true. It's all because Mr. Chi told me to do it. Chi-dok's anger had reached its peak. He punched Lam Vin straight in the face, causing him to fall backwards. Look at the person who harmed your child lying right before your eyes. Chi-Dok was angry and wanted to immediately kill him. At this time, Tu Tui Min immediately added, "You have been fired." Lam then immediately sat up, stunned. Tu Tui Min frowned and said, "People like you have ruined the reputation of medical professionals." Lam then quickly ran back and begged, "Dean, I was blinded by money, so I did that. I know it was wrong. Please give me another chance." He knelt down in front of the dean and begged, "Dean, I beg you." The director frowned and ordered, "Take him away." The other doctors immediately complied. Lam then was dragged away. He must be regretting what he did right now. On this side, Chi-Dok asked worriedly, "Director, how is my daughter?" The director remembered So Min's method and smiled and replied, "Don't worry. Little brother So is absolutely not an ordinary person. His treatment method also opened my eyes." As soon as he finished speaking, the operating room lights immediately turned off. The time is less than an hour. The doctors were startled. They had never seen a scene like this before. Both Tae-Dok and Tu Min Tui immediately turned their heads to look. So Min and two doctors helped push little Nana out. He said, "My plan was very successful. Next, I just need to rest and recuperate." A supporting doctor smiled and said, "Dr. So Min's method is very special. Eastern medicine combined with Western medicine really opened my eyes." The other doctor also agreed. "Dr. So Min, you are the most genius doctor I have ever met in all my years as an anesthesiologist." So Min scratched his head embarrassedly. "Everyone is so praising." Tae-Dok approached her daughter, caressing her face, happy to see that Nana's face was much better. So Min reminded, "The girl is still very weak, don't make any noise to her." Then So Min gave Tae-Dok a prescription, telling him to take this. From now on every day, just give Nana time to use it. Twice a day, after half a month it will definitely be effective. Chi-Dok held the prescription and was moved to tears. "You're scared." Then he came down to thank. "Brother So, your great kindness, Tae-Dok, I will engrave in my heart and remember forever. In the future, if there is anything that needs to be assigned, even if it is up the mountain, if the sword falls into the sea of fire, I will not refuse." So Min quickly went up to help Tae-Dok. "Mr. Tae has said too much, quickly stand up." Tu Tui Min also advised, "Take Nana back to the hospital room to rest." "So Min, I have something to tell you. Can you come to my office for a while?" So Min immediately agreed. A moment later, the two arrived at Tu Min Tui's office. So Min looked around the room. He thought to himself, "Is this the dean's office? Much worse than that senior sister's place, but still suitable for a doctor's style. Being a doctor is not the right thing to do. It's for money." The director gave So Min a cup of tea and said, "I only have tea like this here, don't criticize." So Min smelled it and said to himself, "This tea is so fragrant, this must be of superior quality." The director immediately went straight to the main issue. He proposed, "So Min, I want to accept you as my disciple. Are you willing?" Hearing that, So Min spat out the piece of tea he was drinking in his mouth. Outside the door, a female doctor accidentally heard it and was surprised. "Does the director want to be a disciple?" She was startled. "I didn't hear it wrong." The dean said the word disciple. Medicine is similar to national art, focusing on inheritance. Normally, famous people only accept graduate students and rarely accept disciples. But if you accept a disciple, it means you will teach everything you have learned in this life to your disciple. The selected doctor just needs to become a disciple of the dean, and then he can take one step to the clouds. The director is in the top 10 medical rankings of Zhangchao City. Even in the whole country, he is a famous figure, in the top 100. Yet So Min refused. He said, "Dr. Tu, I'm so embarrassed. I already have a master." Tu Tui Min heard that and was surprised. "What?" The doctor outside also held her head in shock. "Refused? Just who is this person? Why would he refuse the opportunity to step into the clouds? Did I really hear that wrong?" Tu Tui Min poured another cup of tea and asked, "Do you know what you will get if you become my disciple?" "Financial freedom, status, reputation, the most advanced medical research. Many people dream of having these things." So Min honestly explained, "I really don't dare to hide it, Director Tu. I am an orphan. I live in the mountains raised by my 7 masters." So Min put down his cup and proudly said, "To me, they are both teachers and parents." Then he gently refused. "So I can't worship anyone else as my teacher anymore." Tu Min Tui smiled and said, "It turns out that way. Then I won't force you anymore. But you refuse to be my disciple, so calling me uncle is okay, right?" So Min of course did not refuse. He smiled and called, "Uncle Tuesday." Tu Min Tui also smiled and replied, "Hey." Outside, the female doctor's assistant who had been eavesdropping had also felt admiration for So Min. She couldn't believe that there were still people like that in this world. "Perhaps I have encountered too many people who only want immediate benefits." Thinking that, she suddenly felt guilty and shed tears. Suddenly So Min's phone vibrated. He received a message from 7th sister. So Min read the text message saying, "Tae Truck Warehouse." He didn't know where that was. Tu Tui Min immediately replied, "Tae Truck Warehouse is an abandoned place for many years." "How do you know this place?" So Min began to feel guilty. It had been abandoned for many years. Sister sent a message with only these few words: "Is she in danger?" At the same time at Taechuk warehouse, Kai Han Swang's phone was broken by someone. It turned out that it was Truong Chi. He threatened. "Kai Han Swang, you still refuse to give up, right?" Kai Han Swang was now tied up tightly. She stepped back in fear and asked, "Truong Chi, what do you want to do?" Truong Chi bent down and lifted Kai Han Swang's chin, smiling cunningly. He showed a perverted face and said, "Mr. Kai, I've been working as a buffalo and horse for you for a year in the company. Haven't you seen anything?" Then he lifted Kai Han Swang's chin and shouted, "And yet you dare to mess with another man. Do you consider me an idiot?" Kai Han Swang gritted her teeth and thought to herself, "I've known about Truong Chi wanting me for a long time, but because he was from the Truong family, there was no way to directly kick him out. But I didn't expect that he would dare to bribe his assistant to kidnap me." Kai Han Swang recalled the time she was sitting in the car being driven by Assistant Tran. She suddenly drove to Taechuk warehouse, contrary to the location Kai Han Swang intended to go. Assistant Tran was just silent in response to Kai Han Swang's question. After the car stopped, a group of young thugs holding sticks approached. Kai Han Swang was extremely surprised. She quickly shouted, "Tu Tran, drive quickly, what are you doing?" But Assistant Tran trembled and did not drive anymore. She stammered and said, "I'm sorry, President Kentucky Deputy President Truong told me to do that. Don't blame me, I also have my own suffering." Kai Han Swang now realized that he had unintentionally fallen into a trap. She blamed herself. If she had known this day would come, she should have followed Master Luke to learn some martial arts. I hope you can understand the meaning of my message. At this time, Truong Chi took off his jacket, wanting to play tricks on Kai Han Swang. Truong Chi ordered his juniors, "Go outside and guard. By the way, throw her phone out so it won't be located by GPS. If anyone dares to disturb this happy young master, don't survive today." He pulled up his sleeve and ordered the rest of his juniors, "Hold her tight. I want to give her an injection first, otherwise I'll almost make you lose interest." Being held back by two juniors, Kai Han Swang quickly suggested, "Truong Chi, it's not too late for you to stop. As long as you let me leave, I promise not to call the police." But Truong Chi doesn't care. He held the needle and smiled and said, "Call the police? It's not like you still don't know about the power of the Jiang family in Jiangzhou, right? Don't say you're playing with her. Even if I kill you, it won't matter." Kai Han Swang shouted in fear. "Have you ever killed someone?" Truong Chi lifted Kai Han Swang's chin and said, "Behind this warehouse, there is a person I buried there." Then he raised the needle and asked Kai Han Swang, "Do you remember the vice president of your company before I came?" Hearing him say that, Kai Han Swang was extremely surprised. She exclaimed, "Uncle, come! Didn't he resign and go back to his hometown?" Truong Chi smiled savagely. "That's right. I let him return home happily. If he doesn't go, how can I be deputy general?" Kai Han Swang was really scared right now. She struggled and begged, "Get away from me." The junior behind him laughed loudly. "Don't struggle, she will love you later." Kai Han Swang's eyes at that time were extremely scared. The needle was about to be inserted into Kai Han Swang's neck. She cried and begged Truong Chi not to do that. Suddenly, a voice behind shouted, "Stop!" Truong Chi was startled and dropped the needle. He turned around and shouted, Who ruined his life?" Somin said harshly. "Let her go." His hand dragged one of Truong Chi's juniors in. Seeing that his junior brother had arrived, Kai Han Swang clearly expressed his joy. The junior who was defeated by Somin tried to utter warnings. "Brother Chi! This kid!" Seeing his junior like that, Truong Chi turned pale. He loudly ordered the two remaining juniors, "Don't dare ruin my good things. You want to die, right? Up for me. Smash him to death." Somin was now angry to the peak. His eyes flashed with electric sparks. Immediately, a guy was grabbed by Somin's speed. The remaining names are not much better. Immediately after that, the two juniors were thrown to the ground by Somin. The name Truong Chi stood frozen. He was surprised by Somin's strength. His whole body stepped back in panic, shouting, "Don't come over here! Where are you? Where are you?" Somin, his face filled with murderous intent, warned, "Don't call again. I have already dealt with your juniors." Truong Chi was really panicking at this time. He trembled in fear and warned Somin, "Do you dare to touch me? I am a member of the Truong family." Before he could finish his sentence, Somin's anger was concentrated and he gave him a blow. Truong Chi was thrown backwards. Somin continued to rush forward, punching him straight in the face. While beating him, he shouted, "Do you dare to touch my senior sister?" Truong Chi quickly begged, "Big brother, please spare your life. Don't fight anymore." At this time, Kai Han Swang's call rang out, making Somin stop. Only then did Somin remember his seventh senior sister. Kai Han Swang tried to force himself to say, "Stop, I've been poisoned." Somin came forward and quickly untied his seventh sister. He helped his senior sister up. Kai Han Swang stood up unsteadily and said, "He must have injected you with a large amount of medicine." She turned to ask Somin, "Master must have taught me what to do." Without having to remind her sister, So-min quickly took her pulse. From So-min's fingertips emitted a stream of blue true energy. He said, I know how to draw blood. I need to get rid of the poison first. Seeing the green light in So-min's hand, Kaihan Swang was surprised. True energy. She secretly admired So-min. Did So-min even learn this? As expected, she carries luck within herself. Before treatment, So-min reminded Kaihan Swang. Sister 7, try to hold back a bit, it will be a bit painful. Immediately, he transmitted true energy into her body. A piercing pain made Kaihan Swang groan. At this moment, from behind, Chuang Chi, looking like he had just eaten a mouthful of onions, slowly stood up. He pulled the gun's safety off, then shouted, How dare you insult me like that? This man wants you to die. So-min's eyes were filled with murderous intent and turned around to threaten. Only rely on you? Then he released a small stream of true energy straight towards Chuang Chi. The stream of true air flew straight into Chuang Chi's arm. The gun in his hand couldn't control himself and fell. He trembled and asked, What did you do to me? Looking at his hand that was twitching, Chuang Chi shouted, My hand! My hand can't be controlled anymore. So-min helped his senior sister up, smiled and said, I just cut off your meridians. Chuang Chi stood there looking at his arm and was horrified when he heard So-min say, If you don't reattach it within 2 days, then your arm will be completely unusable. Chuang Chi ran away in fear and quickly returned to tell his brother and father. He ran and thought to himself, There is someone in my Chuang family who can reconnect the meridians for me. Seeing him run away, Kaihan Swang reminded his younger brother. So-min, he wants to run. So-min smiled smugly. He can't run. I have an assistant. On this side, Chuang Chi ran to the door and turned around to look at So-min and Kaihan Swang with hateful eyes. He said to himself, Damn you two, just wait there. I will take revenge on you 2 times over. Suddenly, a fist suddenly appeared, hitting Chuang Chi directly in the face, causing his teeth and lips to mix. Chuang Chi fell down in shock, not understanding who had just attacked him. He screamed, Damn it! Who is it again? Why do you keep hitting me in the face? In front of him now was a muscular man. That is Chi Duck, he asked with a serious face. Brother Chi, long time no see. Chuang Chi stepped back in fear. Chi Duck, without me, your daughter would have died several times. You cannot be so ungrateful. Chi Duck punched Chuang Chi in the face again and shouted, That's right. Then I have to thank you really well. Kaihan Swang was extremely surprised and asked So-min, Who is this person? So-min smiled and turned to answer, To protect the future of our 7 Saints sect. Kaihan Swang was surprised. Protection? Seeing Kaihan Swang's puzzled expression, So-min laughed loudly. That's right. The first step in establishing a sect is to find a powerful treasure. Hearing that, Kaihan Swang asked confusedly, So have you received a disciple yet? This question made So-min hesitate. This has not progressed yet. Chi Duck has now finished dealing with Chuang Chi. He carried the bad guy by his neck and approached So-min. Not only Chuang Chi, but Tae Duck also threw her traitor to Assistant Tran to take the blame in front of Kaihan Swang. Chi Duck said to So-min, This woman was just grumpy outside. I'll bring you here too. Kaihan Swang's face was serious. She slowly approached the assistant. Looking at Kaihan Swang's cold face, the assistant tried to explain. Mr. Kai, I was only forced. She cried and begged. I beg you. Please forgive me this time. Kaihan Swang frowned and asked. Tu Tran, tell me, why do you do this kind of thing? Assistant Tran turned to look at the unconscious Chuang Chi and replied. My sister, Tran Yen Yen, disappeared half a year ago. Chuang Chi said he had clues about my sister, but I had to help him before he could please tell me. Then she screamed. He promised me he wouldn't hurt you. I really didn't know this would happen. Chuang Chi tried to wake up at this time, smiled cunningly and said to the assistant. Your sister is also a person without eyes. Then he started telling the truth. After being fucked by me, he became pregnant. Originally I was going to give her some money and send her away. Unexpectedly, she said she had developed feelings for me and wanted me to take charge. How could I waste my life with a woman who was already tired of playing? Right at that time, there was a construction project going on at my house, so I took her there to stake it. Haha. Assistant Tran was dumbfounded when he heard him say that. Not only that, Chuang Chi pointed at Assistant Tran's face and shouted. Even though I'm a scumbag, I hate people like you who betray others even more. Assistant Tran has now lost his temper. She rushed in and grabbed Chuang Chi's hair and punched him hard. While punching her, she shouted, Animal! I must avenge my sister. Seeing the situation like that, Kaihan Swang standing outside was also depressed, not wanting to stay and watch this comedy anymore. So-min also agreed. He said to Chi Duck, Big brother Chi, leave the remaining matters to me to handle. I'll take my senior sister to go first. A few days later, someone slammed the newspaper on the table. The newspaper clearly stated the headline. The son of the Truong family, one of the 10 major families, committed a heinous crime. This serious man is Truong Chan Hoa, head of the Truong family. He said to his eldest son. What your younger brother committed this time is very big. The eldest son of the Truong family, Truong Tian, also agreed. So we can't protect it either. Truong Chan Hoa was extremely angry and slammed the table. He gritted his teeth and ordered Truong Tian to find the person who harmed Truong Chi and put him in prison. Then he stood up and shouted, "You must make them pay a heavy price." Truong Tian showed a photo and said, "I found this photo. This is the wound on Truong Chi's body. It was cut off by someone else. The precise method makes others admire." Truong Chan Hoa saw the photo and was shocked. "You mean the person who captured Truong Chi is a master of national arts? Why would such a character want to take action against your younger brother?" He looked worried, suspecting that this person wanted to target the Truong family. Truong Tian pushed up his glasses and replied, "That's right. At least from this, we can judge that's the case." He judged. Tu Chi was just their first move, to strike a preemptive strike against our Truong family. Hearing this, Truong Chan Hoa was so angry that he gritted his teeth. Truong Tian pondered and continued, "I all know 3 national arts masters in Zhangchao City. None of them have such precise techniques. Can come to the door, not only good at national arts, but also a very good person in medicine." Truong Chan Hoa heard his eldest son say that and said loudly, "Okay, very good." He went out the window, looked at the scene below and decided, if you want to fight, you must fight to the end. Then he turned around and ordered Truong Tian, "No matter the cost, find all the experts we can invite to come here." A short time later, So Min and Tan Yen are standing in front of Kai Han Swang's mansion. When Tan Yen saw such a magnificent mansion, he was extremely surprised. "Is it here? This is a high-class subdivision." So Min nodded to confirm. "That's right. The address 7th sister sent me is here." So Min and Tan Yen slowly walked in. Suddenly, the system alerted of an illegal intruder. The bodyguard guarding the gate immediately invited So Min to scan his face to enter. So Min was confused, pointed inside and said that he only came here to find someone. The bodyguard smiled and said, "Then please give me your ID card. Also, please tell me the name of the homeowner you want to find. We will contact you for you." So Min was confused. "Is it so troublesome?" Tan Yen stood behind and observed. She thought to herself, "This is a high-class ward. It seems that the identity of this 7th senior sister is not simple." Seeing that So Min looked suspicious, the bodyguard stopped him. "If you can't provide it, please leave here. This is not a place where anyone can come in and out at will." Suddenly there was a voice behind. "Please come in." The bodyguard heard the voice and turned around in surprise. "That's Kai Han Swang." She stood there and relieved So Min. Kai Han Swang confirmed, "They are my honored guests." The bodyguard was startled and confused. He turned out to be a distinguished guest of President Kai. Then he ordered the others to quickly open the door. Tan Yen looked at Kai Han Swang, then turned to ask So Min, "Is this your 7th senior sister? She has real temperament." So Min smiled and replied, "Her personality is like that. Actually, she is a very good person." Kai Han Swang suddenly stopped, turned to Tan Yen and asked, "Are you my junior brother's roommate?" Then she stared at Tan Yen, silently evaluating. After careful observation, Kai Han Swang thought to himself, "This is the person with a positive physique that I spent so much money and material resources that I couldn't find. Perhaps this is my junior brother's luck." Then Kai Han Swang slowly approached. She took Tan Yen's hand. Then he smiled. "Thank you for being willing to come treat me." This action surprised Tan Yen. So Min looked at the 2 women in front of him, feeling confused. Why does this scene feel so strange? After entering Kai Han Swang's house, So Min began giving instructions on how to treat him. After completing the instructions, So Min concluded, "I have already taught you 2 how to treat it. Next, you have to look at yourself." Tan Yen asked confusedly, "Does it have to be like that?" Kai Han Swang turned and replied, "I'm just reluctant." Then she leaned closer, gently touched Tan Yen's cheek and whispered, "We just need the first step." Seeing Tan Yen's embarrassment, Kai Han Swang reassured, "My sexual orientation is not gay. You don't need to worry." Tan Yen's heart pounded and he replied, "That's okay." Then they both started to move their lips closer to each other. Seeing that, So Min blushed and said, "Then I'll go out first." Tan Yen and Kai Han Swang then kissed. A flow of positive energy and a flow of negative energy began to neutralize each other. Outside, So Min was sitting there watching. Progress was very smooth. Senior Sister 7's extremely cold constitution is being gradually eliminated like Tan Yen's positive constitution. He clenched his fists in joy. As long as he perseveres for a while, Senior Sister 7 can gradually recover. Next, you must quickly complete the task. Then he began to close his eyes and concentrate on thinking. Building the sect had just begun. First, using the 3 masters divination method, try to calculate your first disciple. So Min focuses on divination. A moment later, he gritted his teeth when he saw his first disciple. It turned out that it was Vu Lam Lam. In his mind, an image appeared of himself holding his chest because he was injured. In front of him, Vu Lam Lam stretched out his arms to block the blade coming at him. So Min opened his eyes in shock. Could it be that his first disciple is Vu Lam Lam? Suddenly, Kai Han Swang came out and said, "Junior brother, today's treatment session is over." She turned around and told So-min, "I'm going to take a shower first. Yenni won't come back tonight, sleep at my place." Hearing that, So-min panicked and covered his face, thinking, "Just like that you already called Yenni? So are you sleeping together? Are you two progressing too fast?" Ten Yen looked out from inside and said to Kai Han Swang, "Wait. Let's take a bath together." Kai Han Swang happily agreed. Hearing that, So-min became even more panicked. Bathing together? That night, after taking a shower, the two of them happily went out to eat with So-min. During the meal, So-min wondered, "Are you two that close? We talked all the way, but we still talked even after eating." Kai Han Swang replied with a serious face, "You don't understand the matter of our daughters." So-min heard that and didn't ask anything more. Suddenly, his phone vibrated. So-min answered the phone. Turns out it was Vu Lam Lam. She said in a hasty tone, "So-min, I have something urgent to find you." So-min immediately asked again, "Can't we talk over the phone?" "I'm eating," Vu Lam Lam said in a worried voice. "It's something related to the Truong family. You and Tae-dok are about to get into trouble." So-min quickly left. Go to a deserted place. This is where Lam promised to meet him. Seeing So-min, Lam Lam raised his hand and waved him over. So-min quickly asked, "What happened? How do you know Big Brother T's name?" Vu Lam Lam quickly replied, "What happened to Truong Chi? You did it, right? You don't need to deny it. My grandfather sent someone to check the camera and confirm it." Hearing that, So-min suddenly realized that there was a camera. Vu Lam Lam worriedly reminded So-min, "My grandfather ordered someone to destroy the camera, but I'm not sure if anyone copied it before. It clearly records what you and Tae-dok did with Truong Chi." She explained with a serious face. Truong Chi's father, Truong Chan Hoa, had leaked information to 10 major families. He said he wanted to find the person who targeted the Truong family and avenge Truong Chi. Moreover, he also said that no matter the cost. So-min calmly replied, "If you want revenge, come. No matter how many people come, I will beat as many people." So-min's calmness did not make Lam Lam feel less worried. She said, "So-min, after all, the Truong family is a big family, and they come from a gangster background. In their family, there are also experts in national arts like you." Then Lam Lam began to explain. "According to the information of my Vu family, the Truong family has 2 top-level masters. It is said that these 2 people once joined hands to destroy 100 gangster organizations." So-min calmly sat down and asked again, 100 people? Seeing that So-min did not show any signs of surprise, Vu Lam Lam was surprised. "How can you be so calm? Can you two defeat 100 people with your bare hands?" So-min still kept a calm tone and replied, "If I were a martial arts expert, this would be very easy. Of course I can do it." Hearing So-min say that, Lam Lam suddenly realized that So-min was also a monster. The two were talking when suddenly a voice spoke from behind them. "Really? At such a young age, their tone is not small at all." Hearing the voice behind them, both So-min and Lam Lam turned around in surprise to see who it was. The person who spoke up was a martial arts master. "His name is Tru Ho. He is the bodyguard of the Truong family." So-min innocently asked, "Who is that?" Lam Lam seemed to recognize him. She said, "I recognize him. I once met him at the banquet of the 10 great families." She immediately warned So-min. He was a nobleman of the Truong family, named Tru Ho. He was one of the 2 people who destroyed the underground organization. Hearing this, Tru Ho smiled and replied, "It seems that someone also remembers the old man's name." So-min stood up, frowned and asked, "Are you here to avenge Truong Chi?" Tru Ho smiled. "If not, then what?" Having said that, he sent energy into his feet. Then, ignoring Lam Lam, he immediately rushed to attack So-min. While launching the move, he shouted, "You hurt my Chi Ni so miserably, go and die." So-min did not flinch. He raised his hand to block Tru Ho's punch and replied, "That's what he did himself." Tru Ho waved his other hand, preparing to throw another punch. He threatened, "The Truong family's affairs are not the place for outsiders like you to interfere." So-min quickly jumped back to avoid Tru Ho's powerful punch. Just looking at the ground being cracked by Zhao Hu's punch, So-min just said, "You guys colluding together is the reason why he is where he is today." Tru Ho continued to rush forward with murderous intent. The two fought very fiercely. While launching the attack, both blocking and counterattacking, it's very thrilling. Vu Lam Lam stood outside watching trembling, wondering what she should do now. The battle between the two became more and more fierce. She thought nervously, "Can I really help him? So-min is fighting a strong opponent, yet I can only stand here and watch." On this side, So-min with true energy as blue as ice is rushing to fight with Tru Ho, true energy as red as fire. The two duel one-on-one. Their punches collided with each other, creating a loud noise in the dark night. The two of them almost refused to give in to the other. But suddenly, So-min dodged and jumped back. On this side, Tru Ho looked at his shaking hand and thought to himself, "This kid has real strength. He can cause trouble for me." So-min warned Tru Ho, "Senior, if Truong Chi does something wrong, He will be punished by the law. If you keep trying to blame it on me, I can do it without any care. True Ho now felt So-min's power. He frowned and stared at him. Then he turned around and left, not forgetting to warn. That's all for today. You guys watch that. Lam Lam then breathed a sigh of relief. So it's over. So-min clenched his hand and confirmed. He probably just wanted to come to test my strength. The punch just now made his arms sore and numb. Lam Lam wondered. So you are stronger than him? So-min was also somewhat worried at this time. He replied. The me now can only be a little stronger than him. Lam Lam heard that and was a little worried about the future for So-min. Suddenly, a WeChat message was sent to So-min. He opened his phone and read it, then was happy to see that it was Chi-nak. He announced that Na, his daughter, was awake. So-min and Lam Lam looked at the father and son radiantly, and were happy for them. Na happily thanked So-min. Chi-nak also added. Brother Na is awake. Your medical skills are also very powerful. Suddenly, Na was suddenly grabbed and controlled by a hand. So-min and Lam Lam were worried and didn't understand what was going on. Immediately another video was sent to So-min. Lam Lam immediately told So-min to quickly see. So-min opened it and saw a man with his hair in a bun. He smiled and said, You are So-min, right? I am Truong Tien, Truong Chi's biological brother. Truong Tien suddenly coldly threatened. Come to my villa in 3 days. Otherwise, you will not see these two people again. So-min felt worried. He realized that True Ho had just come just to buy time. Lam Lam turned to worry about So-min. The word Tuksan was a place far away from the city. Do they want to be there to kill you? Ignoring the danger, So-min gritted his teeth and said, Chi-nak is my friend. Na is my patient. I can't leave them alone and not care. I have to go. Lam Lam knows he cannot stop So-min. She suggested. If you have made up your mind to go, then I can help you. Come with me to meet Grandpa. So-min immediately wondered. You want to let old Vu help, does he agree? Lam Lam clenched his fists and asserted. Your medicine saved our Vu family disciples. Grandpa will definitely repay you for this. So-min heard that and thought, Vu Lam Lam will be my disciple in the future. Maybe this time will be an opportunity. He immediately agreed and then turned around and went with Lam Lam to the Vu family. A moment later, at the Vu family's villa, So-min sat in a luxurious chair. He looked around and admired. Is this Lam Lam's house? This place is like the palace on TV. Master Vu and Lam Lam then also went down. Old Master Vu seriously warned So-min. So-min, your matter this time is not a small matter. Then he sat down and began to explain. The way the Truong family became rich is not the same as our Vu family. They come from a gangster background with cruel tricks. If you touch Truong Chi, there is only one outcome, death. Hearing that, So-min was startled and asked again. Even the Vu family finds it difficult? He secretly thought, the Vu family is also one of the 10 great families. Moreover, its status is even higher than the Truong family. Grandfather said that probably because he wanted to add more conditions. Old Master Vu stroked his beard slowly and replied. Difficulties? In Zhangchao, except for the above 2 families, there is nothing difficult for our Vu family. You are grateful to our Vu family. Of course we will help. However, the people in the 10 great families are interconnected, and even the slightest loophole will affect the situation. Therefore, we can only silently help you, and cannot directly intervene. Lam Lam heard his grandfather say that and immediately stood up and asked. Grandpa, So-min's medicine saved our entire Vu family. Old Master Vu immediately raised his hand to interrupt Lam Lam's words. He continued to tell So-min. In addition, we will not let the Vu family's martial arts masters take action. If you want to win against the Truong family, you can only rely on yourself. Also, once the Truong family is resolved, all of the Truong family's assets will belong to our Vu family. Lam Lam clenched his hands and asked. Grandpa, how could you? Ignoring Lam Lam's confusion, So-min immediately replied. Thank you for your good intentions. Then let's discuss how to deal with the Truong family. Elder Vu and So-min began to discuss. Lam Lam here was extremely worried. After completing the discussion, Lam Lam drove So-min away. So-min sighed and said, It seems like the discussion is over. I think this plan is very good, worthy of Grandpa Vu. Lam Lam asked So-min. Grandpa's conditions are very unreasonable. Our Vu family just helps a little, but wants to take all the spoils. Aren't you angry? So-min turned and replied. As long as my friend is okay, the other things you give me are of no use. Having said that, in So-min's heart he was thinking, this time I still have you accompanying me. If you cannot accept the first disciple, the establishment of the sect will be considered a failure. He turned to look at Lam Lam who was driving intently and thought, furthermore, this time of action, Vu Lam Lam seems to have become an important person. Lam Lam heard So-min say he didn't care about the spoils and said, Your vision is also wide. Immediately after that, she drove quickly to take So-min back to the inn. The car quickly parked in front of Hong Mok's subdivision. So-min got out of the car, waved goodbye to Lam Lam and then walked inside. Lam Lam is not in a hurry to return. She called So-min back and asserted, So-min, I don't know anyone else but you can completely trust me. Hearing that, So-min also smiled brightly and thanked Lam Lam. After that, So-min turned around and left. On the way home, Lam Lam thought to himself, why am I like this? So-min is just an outsider. She patted her cheek to calm herself down. What if she never meets someone as interesting as him? 3 days later, at the Truong family villa in Chutuk-san. Inside at this time, 2 juniors of the Truong family were comfortably playing cards. Suddenly, Truong Tian appeared, making the 2 juniors startled and scared. He ordered someone to open the cell door. The 2 juniors quickly opened the door. Truong Tian immediately walked in. Inside is Chi-dok, who is still sleeping. Looking closely at Chi-dok, a large man was beaten until his whole body was bruised. Truong Tian poured water on his head to wake Chi-dok up. Chi-dok slowly opened his eyes. He saw Truong Tian and shouted, Truong Tian, you beast! He shouted and asked him where he locked Na. Truong Tian smiled cunningly and replied, you are now just like a lost dog. Then he bent down, held a cigarette in his hand, pointed it straight at Chi-dok's face and said, what's the use of you calling? To provoke Chi-dok, Truong Tian held the phone in his hand and said, your daughter is very good in my hands. I took a photo. I can show it to you at the right time. After saying that, he showed the phone to Tae-dok. Seeing his daughter trembling in fear, Chi-dok angrily cursed him. You animal! I will kill you. But his struggle was stopped by the chain. Seeing that Chi-dok was angry, Truong Tian ordered an acupuncturist to apply acupuncture points to his acupuncture points. Immediately 2 needles pierced acupoints on both sides of Chi-dok's chest. Chi-dok trembled, unable to resist. After Chi-dok collapsed, Truong Tian said, don't worry. Today is the 3rd day. If your good friend So-min doesn't show up, you and your daughter will soon be reunited. As soon as he finished speaking, Truong Tian's phone vibrated. He smiled when he knew So-min had arrived. Truong Tian immediately turned around and left, not forgetting to order his juniors to welcome So-min well. At this time, Chi-nen only knew how to secretly worry about his junior brother So. Outside the villa, it was pouring rain at this time. So-min appeared at the gate. He shouted loudly for those inside to hear. Truong Tian, I'm So-min here. Immediately the guards outside the villa rushed in. They all wanted to take So-min's life. But how can these little guys make things difficult for So-min? He rushed up, used his energy to gather on his fingertips, and continuously pressed all the acupuncture points. In just a blink of an eye, all the guards outside were completely defeated by him. Inside the villa, Truong Tian quickly ran to warn. Dad, Uncle Ho Sr., that kid is here. He is currently fighting with our subordinates. A man requested that if he wanted him to take action, they needed to discuss the price a bit. Not even a single penny was missing. True, who told him not to rush, just drink tea first. Outside, the Truong family's subordinates writhed in pain on the ground, seeing So-min's footsteps approaching. Some of the guys who were still able to hold on ran away together. At this time, only So-min was left alone to go inside. So-min thought to himself, these gangsters are just lackeys. He remembered the image of True Ho fighting with him before and thought to himself, that night, the person who fought with me was the Truong family's trump card. At this time, So-min gathered his strength into one punch. He used all his strength to hit the door of the Truong family's house. When the crowd saw the door being broken, they shouted and ran away. At this time, So-min stood in front of the ruined door. He shouted loudly, Truong Tian! Where are you hiding? Even like a turtle! Seeing So-min, several subordinates inside looked scared. But there was a man who fearlessly stepped forward and asked, are you So-min? So-min replied with a serious face, you are not qualified to talk to me. Call Truong Tian here. The other person immediately threatened. This place is Sect Master Truong's territory. I am the master's eldest disciple. Even Truong Tian has to call me uncle. Then he shouted loudly, boy, you look down on others a bit. So-min's face changed. He said, contempt for others? Then immediately So-min, with his agile movements, approached the other man. Much to his shock, So-min punched this guy in the face and shouted, you animals are still trying to kidnap children, also considered human? Seeing senior brother being defeated with just one blow, the surrounding disciples shouted loudly, protect senior brother! Then they all rushed towards So-min. Seeing the whole group rushing towards him, So-min calmly announced through the headset to someone, the firepower in the front line has all passed our way. At the same time, in the backyard of the Truong family's mountain villa, Lam Lam and a group of subordinates of the Vu family were in ambush. Lam Lam received So-min's notice and immediately replied, good. Everything is proceeding according to plan. Then she ordered the people behind her, go, follow me. Right now at the Vu family's villa, Master Vu is clasping his hands and looking at the rain outside the window. He sighed and worried about Lam Lam. Lam Lam, you stupid girl. Just leave the matter of moving the sword to someone else. There's no need to personally do it. He remembered when Lam Lam was preparing to go to reinforce So-min. Lam Lam was determined to go and told him, this time I must go. If I leave it to someone else, I don't feel secure. Furthermore, as the only granddaughter of the Vu family, I cannot be a flower vase. Okay, old Master Vu asked Lam Lam. Is it because of So-min? When Lam Lam heard the question, his face was stunned. She turned away confused and replied, I don't know. Returning to the present, Vu Tru Yanmin told him. Big brother already knew about Lam Lam, so he didn't say anything. Master Vu turned back and asked, What about you? How are you? Vu Tru Yanmin smiled and replied, Admirable, worthy of being the future female owner of the Vu family. Vu Lao thoughtfully asked, Is that so? So who will the royal family marry over there now? Marry you? Hearing this, Vu Tru Yanmin could only laugh. Old man Vu clasped his hands and warned, Don't think that I don't know what's in your heart. This time, if the plan succeeds, Lam Lam will become the great minister of my Vu family. There's more. After taking everything from Truong Jia, our Vu family no longer needs to differentiate between high and low with the Vong family. Returned to the battle inside the Truong family's mansion. So Min was currently holding a disciple's collar. He questioned, Say, where are you hiding people? The disciple trembled and said, I don't know. I really don't know anything. So Min angrily threw him aside. Then he turned away, thinking to himself, These people are just dogs of the Truong family. So Min told himself that after the establishment of Seven Saint Sect, he definitely could not become anyone's lackey. So Min slowly pushed open the door. The door opened easily. Inside, Truong Tian was sitting comfortably drinking wine. In front of him were soldiers equipped with guns, shields, and full armor, pointing their weapons at So Min. Truong Tian shook the wine glass in his hand and smiled cunningly. So Min, finally met you. He leisurely drank and smiled and said, That's great. Being able to get here without getting hurt. So Min looked at Truong Tian, who was still leisurely but angry, clenching his fists. He is trying his best to be patient. Truong Tian sat there, smiling cunningly at So Min and threatening. What a pity. You have to die here. Then he ordered the soldiers in front. Kill him. Go back to the video. Find someone to take him to prison in a moment, for entertainment and relief. Receiving the order, the soldiers immediately opened fire towards So Min. This caused So Min to quickly jump aside to avoid the bullets. Regarding heavy guns, So Min encountered some difficulties. He looked at the brooches in his hand, then silently asked the Great Master for forgiveness for using medical magic to harm people. Regaining composure, So Min took a deep breath. Then So Min quickly ran away from the series of bullets being fired at him. At the same time, he launched a series of needles towards the soldiers. The needles used to save people are now no different from murderous weapons, sticking directly into the heads of camouflaged soldiers. At this time, some people could not lift the shield in their hands. They wondered to each other what was going on, their bodies suddenly disobeying them. Some people collapsed without understanding the reason. Truong Tian behind saw this scene and was speechless. He panicked and ordered the soldiers to quickly chase after So Min. The soldiers holding guns immediately obeyed orders and chased after So Min. So Min stuck his head out, holding a series of needles in his hand, preparing to launch them at them. When the soldiers saw So Min, they reminded each other to be careful and opened their shields to defend. Then they raised their guns and opened fire. At the same time, So Min released another series of needles. His needles accurately shot through the soldiers' bullets, stabbing them straight into their acupuncture points, causing them to collapse on the spot. After that, So Min continued to hide behind the door. Truong Tian was extremely panicked. He stood up suddenly, not understanding why So Min could both avoid the storm of bullets and also injure his people like that. He turned around and intended to retreat with his female subordinate. But it was too late. So Min was already sitting on the wall behind him. Truong Tian shouted in panic. Why are you so fast? So Min said nothing. He just smiled, then launched a series of needles at Truong Tian. Truong Tian cowered in fear, looking at the needles that were about to pierce his body. But fortunately for him, his female subordinate also had some martial arts skills. She had her knife ready and knocked away So Min's series of needles, protecting the young master. Immediately after that, she told Truong Tian to go first so she could stay and buy time. Truong Tian curled her tail and ran away, hiding behind a woman's skirt. So Min saw that the female subordinate's physical skills were also quick, so he asked, I didn't expect that you are also an expert. The female subordinate immediately took a defensive stance and replied, Boy, don't be too exaggerated. I am the young master's close assistant. Saying that, she jumped into the air and threatened. Today is your death anniversary. At this time, in the backyard of the Truong family's villa, Lam Lam and a few close subordinates were quietly approaching inside. Lam Lam took advantage of the moment when So Min attracted the Truong family's attention to sneak in to save Tai Nak father and son. A subordinate quickly discovered Na Na's location. Lam Lam saw Na Na being locked in the cell and quickly approached and rescued her. She ordered her subordinates to keep watch. As for me, I went inside to rescue Na Na. Na Na is now sitting trembling with fear. The little girl was picked up by Lam Lam. Tears kept falling. Lam Lam spoke up to reassure the girl. Don't be afraid. I'm the one asked by So Min to save you. Na Na happily burst into tears in Lam Lam's arms. Everything seemed to be successful, but all actions of Lam Lam's group were monitored. Truong Chan Hoa discovered the movements of Lam Lam's group. He immediately ordered the Kuk family to go there and check. This Kuk family scratched his ear and said, I know, I'll go deal with it. But he added, Dealing with opponents other than So Min requires more money. At this moment, Truong Tian hurriedly ran in to announce, "Father, it's not okay. All the guards in front were defeated by So Min. What should we do now?" Truong Chan Hoa still sat calmly and reassured. "Calm down. Grandfather and True have already gone there," he thoughtfully said to his son. "That boy is absolutely no match for the two of them." At this time, in the backyard, Lam Lam and his subordinates were carrying Na Na to look for Tae Duok. Suddenly Kuk family appeared blocking the group's way. He slowly approached. Lam Lam's subordinates immediately raised their guns and asked, "Who is he?" Seeing many people, he scratched his nose, so he added a lot of money. The guards now opened fire at him. The Kuk family snorted coldly. Regardless of Lam Lam's subordinates opening fire at him, he with just one slash blew away their bullets. He flashed a scary smile and warned, "Do you insects deserve to know my name?" The remaining people continued to shoot. Immediately he disappeared in the rain. Lam Lam and his subordinates turned on alert mode. It seems that this man has a hobby of scratching his nose. Then suddenly he appeared right behind Lam Lam. He asked, "It seems like the one leading is you, right?" Lam Lam panicked and turned around to look, but it was too late. At the same time, at Kai Han Swang's house, Kai Han Swang is looking out the window at the rain. Her heart burned like fire because she was worried about So Min. Suddenly there was a noise behind. She turned around. It seems that Kai Han Swang is waiting for someone. Turns out it was Tan Yen. She asked Kai Han Swang, "Are you waiting for someone?" Kai Han Swang sighed and replied, "Yes. So Min offended the Truong family in order to save me," she explained to Tan Yen. This time he walked alone into the trap they set. I had to find an assistant to help him. Tan Yen put a thin shirt on Kai Han Swang and reassured, "So Min's kung fu is so good, there's definitely nothing wrong." Kai Han Swang smiled and thanked Tan Yen. She continued, "I just blame myself for not being able to help So Min." Then she started talking about her past when she was with So Min in the mountains. "In the past, we were not long in the mountains studying art, but the 7 of us only studied one subject, which was not without difficulty. And later, going down the mountain also worked hard, so the results were not bad. I followed Master 7 to practice Taoism, and actually had some achievements." Kai Han Swang put his hand on his chest and said, "But, because of my age and increased coldness in my body, I have no way to perform Taoism. But this time what happened to the Truong family all happened because of me." As she spoke, she performed magic, but it seems that her poor health prevented her from performing. Kai Han Swang bit her lip because she was so angry with herself that she bled. Seeing this, Tan Yen was extremely worried about Kai Han Swang. Kai Han Swang turned around and said, "Junior brother just came down the mountain and just met my senior sister. He hasn't yet felt a bit of the urban bustle and the photos that I should give him." Kai Han Swang's eyes began to tear up. She clenched her hands and said, "If something happens to him." Suddenly, a voice behind him made them both turn their heads to look. "If something happened to him, what would you do?" The person who spoke turned out to be senior sister Luke named Nam Lin. She stood there leaning against the door and asked Kai Han Swang. Seeing Nam Lin, Kai Han Swang happily shouted, "Sister Nam, you're really here?" Nam Lin asked again. "Continue. How are you?" Kai Han Swang slowly approached and replied, "I will use death to apologize to my master." Nam Lin pulled up a chair and sat down and asked, "Is that so?" After 10 years of no contact, I didn't expect that with her physical condition, she could still be alive today. Tan Yen saw that Nam Lin looked so rude and cried out, "This lady Han Swang, But Han Swang shook his head signaling Tan Yen not to continue speaking. Han Swang began to ask Nam Lin, "Senior sister Luke, what happened before was my fault. But So Min is our little junior brother, do you really not care at all?" Nam Lin calmly replied, "If I didn't care, I wouldn't have come today." Then she continued with a serious face, "But I don't like the way you came to me for help." Immediately Han Swang knelt down in front of Nam Lin. Seeing Nam Lin frown, Kai Han Swang immediately tensed. Han Swang screamed and begged, "Sister Nam, I know you hate me. But this time please save So Min. After the job is done, no matter what you want me to do, Han Swang will definitely not refuse." After listening, Nam Lin remained silent. Then in an instant, Nam Lin disappeared, leaving behind a blurry silhouette of her on the chair. Kai Han Swang is extremely difficult to understand. At this time, Nam Lin jumped up to the window and prepared to save So Min, not forgetting to instruct Han Swang. "I will bring my junior brother back. Let's talk about our story later." Then Nam Lin disappeared. Tan Yen smiled and looked at her and thought, although the senior sister is cold on the outside, she really cares about So Min. Suddenly Han Swang coughed violently. She started coughing up blood. Tan Yen worriedly ran over to help Han Swang. Han Swang waved his hand and told Tan Yen, "I'm fine. Hurry up and chase after senior sister Nam. I also have to do something for junior brother." Return to the battle at the Truong family mansion. So Min now used needles to suppress Truong Tian's female subordinate. Her body was now unable to move. She trembled and moaned, "Let me go." So Min turned to leave, not forgetting to remind, 3 hours later this silver needle will expire. You will be able to move. So Min approached the large door leading inside the villa. He became serious, telling himself that it was time for a duel. So Min gently pushed the door open. In his heart, he hoped that Taedeok and Na Na would wait for him. Waiting for him inside were two masters of the Truong family. Those two were Zhao Hu, whom he had fought before. The other person is expert Truong Long. So Min stopped and asked, "Where is my friend?" Tru Ho gave a devilish smile and replied, "They are like you, about to die." Having said that, Tru Ho rushed up and swung his fist to attack. Following immediately was Truong Long. So Min gently bent down to avoid Tru Ho's punch. Tru Ho did not expect his attack, but So Min easily dodged it. So Min's expression was now more serious than ever. He threatened the two masters in front of him. "Don't say? Then I will fight until you say." Truong Long swung his hand back, preparing to deliver a powerful blow to So Min's head. He shouted, "You rotten boy, do you want to die?" So Min calmly raised his hand to block both of their attacks. Three masters fought together, causing the villa's yard to radiate extremely terrifying pressure. So Min's eyes flashed with a cold look. He thought to himself, the moves of the two people are poisonous. Each punch wants to take someone else's life, and there are also moves from the great sect. Truong Quan's background is not small, however, that is also their weakness. So Min immediately threw a counter-punch straight into Tru Ho's stomach. Truong Long swung his right to counterattack. So Min was still in the pincer position of the two masters. In such a situation, So Min can still throw needles at Truong Long. He was surprised by So Min's cunning tricks. At this time, Tru Ho immediately stood up to stop So Min on behalf of Truong Long. Tru Ho turned back to warn Truong Long. Apparently, just the day before, he fought with him. The gap was huge. Why was it possible to stop two people working together today? So Min heard it and shouted, "That day it was just about fighting, not risking your life. The essence of martial arts is not to perform, but to take other people's lives," he asked with a serious face. "What's more, there's no mention of being sinister. If the two of you fight together, who's more sinister?" Truong Long sat down to seal the acupuncture points and squeezed the silver needles out. He asked Tru Ho to keep So Min at bay. Tru Ho immediately rushed forward to take So Min's life. So Min smiled. His hand held a series of needles. He said, "Hold me? One move can defeat you." Suddenly a voice interrupted the match. "Hey, wait a minute, otherwise I won't be polite." That voice belonged to the Kuk family. He captured Lam Lam and Na Na. So Min was startled and cried out, "Vu Lam Lam, Na Na." Lam Lam trembled and apologized. "So Min, I'm sorry I couldn't help you." So Min loudly reassured, "It's okay. Being able to save Na Na is already a huge help." Kuk family let go of Lam Lam and Na Na. In his hand was a large sword. He said to Tru Ho and Truong Long, "You two, look carefully. Lao Tzu wants to deal with this So Min himself." Tru Ho immediately grabbed Lam Lam tightly, asking her to be a little more honest. Seeing that Lam Lam was in danger, So Min shouted, "Let her go." The expert surnamed Kuk waved his sword at So Min and loudly warned, "Your opponent is me." So Min immediately jumped back to avoid the sword. So Min looked at the Kuk family's sword. He realized this man was using true energy. Truong Long and Tru Ho saw the sword of the expert named Kuk and immediately exclaimed, "Mr. Kuk is truly in the True Chi realm." Kuk family turned on the true air mode and threatened So Min. "The next sword is to take your life." So Min also mobilized his true energy. He also threw a punch at him. So Min's green true energy punch collided with Kuk family's red true energy blade, creating a loud explosion. Immediately after that, both were pushed back. Seeing that So Min was also in the True Chi realm, the two names Tru Ho and Truong Long were extremely surprised. "That boy named So, how come he is also in the True Chi realm? That kid is only 20 years old, he can reach that realm. That I have never touched." So Min's eyes now flashed with murderous intent. The Kuk family was no less competitive. He shouted loudly, "I will kill you!" The two immediately fought each other fiercely. Both of their movements were so fast that only two streaks of red and blue light could be seen colliding with each other. The two fought for a while without winning or losing. So Min realized that the strength of this guy named Kuk was too strong, so he was forced to use his secret technique, Think and Do. So Min immediately pressed it on his chest. He decided to release part of the seal. That guy named Kuk doesn't seem to care. He waved his sword and shouted, "It's useless! Die!" But it seems he despised So Min too much. With just one hand, So Min completely blocked his powerful blade. An explosion rumbled in the air. Lam Lam worriedly shouted, "So Min!" The smoke and dust cleared, revealing the scene of So Min's bare hands blocking So Min's sword. The Kuk family was extremely shocked. "How is this possible?" His body trembled with fear. He panicked and asked So Min, "How are you in the perfect True Chi realm?" Realizing that So Min was overwhelming, Tru Ho and Truong Long said to each other, "We are not this kid's opponents. If we don't act yet, we won't have a chance." Immediately both men rushed to help the Kuk family. They laughed loudly. "Haha, you are surrounded and attacked by us. No matter how high your level is, you will die." So Min was also somewhat confused when surrounded. He thought to himself, this swordsman's strength is not bad. Even if I fight alone, I can only solve 8 restrictions. So Min bent down to gain momentum. So Min jumped up to avoid all 3 joining forces to attack, because he knew he couldn't face all 3 and could only defeat each one. So Min landed where Lam was standing. At this time, in addition to fighting, he also has to protect Lam Lam and Na Na. True Ho continued to rush forward, throwing a punch behind So Min. But So Min dodged True Ho's attack and rushed forward to punch Kuk Jia in the face. Then, he took advantage of the situation and threw a kick into True Ho's stomach. Suddenly, a bullet fired secretly from behind hit So Min's back. Lam Lam panicked and pointed upward to warn. Be careful above! It turned out that it was Truong Tien and a few soldiers on the roof who secretly shot at So Min. Truong Tien gave a cunning smile and said, Boy, you are also very powerful. So Min frowned and looked towards him. Truong Tien, is it you again? So Min was hit by a bullet, so at this moment, Kuk family swung his sword and rushed forward to take So Min's life. He laughed loudly. You are injured, now you are no longer my opponent. Ha! Truong Tien smiled proudly. Thank Mr. Kuk for help. The soldiers on the roof continued to shoot towards So Min. Surrounded by so many directions, So Min kept the wound on his shoulder while running away. He thought to himself, we have to think of a way to deal with those 2 snipers. At this point, the situation was hanging by a thread. Kuk's sword was about to strike So Min's head. Seeing that the situation was not good, Lam Lam let go of Na Na and rushed to block So Min, and then the blood fell. Kuk's sword pierced Lam Lam's stomach, seriously injuring her. Looking at the blade sticking into Vu Lam Lam's stomach, this scene was exactly the same as when he once predicted his first disciple. So Min shouted, Vu Lam Lam! The Kuk family angrily pushed Lam away. Even though Lam Lam was injured, he still tried not to let him harm So Min. The Kuk family did not hold back. He raised his hand to throw a punch to finish Lam Lam. So Min was extremely angry at this time. He threw a punch filled with counter-attacking anger. As fast as lightning, So Min's true energy punch hit Kuk's forehead straight. The punch was so strong that it cracked the skull on his forehead. So Min hugged Lam Lam even though the other guy named Kuk was holding his head, extremely painful. The series of bullets continued to shoot straight into So Min's back, injuring him. Lam Lam did not expect that So Min would not care about danger to save her. At this time, So Min turned his head to look at Truong Tien and shouted, Truong Tien! I will kill you! Truong Tien was still proud on the roof. Wait for the next life. So Min hugged Lam Lam tightly to protect her while Truong Tien was giving orders to finish them both. At this moment, suddenly there was a very fast purple light that knocked out both of the other snipers. That was the silhouette of Nam Lin, So Min's 6th sister, who had come to reinforce him. Truong Tien trembled under the threat of Nam Lin's kick. Nam Lin warned him. If you move again, I will kill you. Truong Tien trembled and shouted. Who are you? Nam Lin turned to So Min and asked. Are you So Min? Then she introduced. I am your senior sister Luke. I am Nam Lin. Your 7th senior sister asked me to help you. This favor you owe to your 7th senior sister. So Min was startled when he heard about 6th sister. Ignoring his bleeding wound, So Min turned around happily. You are the rare martial arts genius that 6th master said? Hearing So Min say that, Nam Lin smiled painfully. She thought to herself. Genius? Truong Tien took the opportunity while the 2 were chatting and secretly ordered someone to attack Nam Lin. The sniper who was knocked down just now tried to crawl back to get his gun, but Nam Lin quickly discovered it. She stomped her foot on the tile roof, and a tile popped up. Then use your foot to kick a piece of tile away. The assassin immediately took a tile to the head and lost consciousness. She then turned around and kicked Truong Tien in the face, shouting, Don't do things behind my back. Below, So Min placed Lam Lam against the wall. He patted Lam Lam's head and asked, Why are you so stupid? Lam Lam tried to forcefully point his finger at Na Na. Seeing that, So Min said, Na Na, you left it there and it's okay. Then he grabbed Lam's hand to stop her bleeding. So Min quickly used true energy to stop the bleeding wound on Lam Lam's abdomen. After the examination, So Min breathed a sigh of relief because the wound was not too dangerous. Immediately, So Min stood up and told Lam Lam, You rest well. I'll go handle the rest. Immediately after that, So Min jumped onto the roof opposite Truong Tien. So Min was extremely angry. He looked at Truong Tien and said, First Truong Chi teased my 7th sister. Today you injured Vu Lam Lam again. Truong Tien was extremely scared at that time. So Min's eyes flashed with a murderous look towards Truong Tien. You asked him how he wanted to die? Truong Tien trembled and begged for his life. So Min kicked him in the chest and replied, Spare your life? How can it be that easy? This time, retribution comes to the right person. How can Truong Tien escape? Nam Lin let So Min handle Truong Tien. She glanced past him and asked, How are the rest of the Truong family handling it? So Min seriously replied, Kill the grass completely. 2 days later, news of the Truong T group being wiped out overnight and the takeover of the Vu family's assets spread throughout the newspapers. Lam Lam sat on the hospital bed and informed So Min. Grandpa told me. The Truong family's consequences have been handled, So-min replied while peeling the apple. I know. Grandpa Vu has worked hard. Lam Lam looked at So-min peeling apples for him and wondered. Why don't you go visit Na Na and Tae Duc, instead stay here with me? So-min immediately replied. I came to visit. They all only had external injuries, not as serious as you. So-min explained that she needed to be periodically refilled by him, otherwise it would cause complications. Lam Lam sat up and asked again. Just for this? So-min smiled and replied. Of course not. I still have a very important matter. Lam Lam looked surprised. What's going on? So-min said with a serious face. The next thing is an extremely important matter related to you and me. I hope you don't refuse. Lam Lam was a bit surprised when he heard that. Seeing So-min's seriousness, Lam Lam turned away and replied. So we have to see what it is first. Having said that, Lam Lam is thinking in his heart, do you want to finally confess your love? So-min is really a good guy. But the royal family left. I don't need to care about that royal family. So-min clapped his hands on his chest and seriously suggested. I hope I can accept you as a disciple. As soon as So-min's words ended, Lam Lam was bewildered. What's going on? Where did you confess your love? In anger, Lam Lam shouted and pushed So-min out. So-min tried to say. I'm serious. You can think. Before he could finish speaking, a pillow flew straight at So-min's face. Nam Lin suddenly appeared right next to him and announced. The battle is over, so I should go visit your that sister. So-min asked in surprise. What's wrong with her? Nam Lin replied. I don't know. I've never studied medicine, she informed So-min. Last time she asked me to help you, give her a heart attack. Nam Lin suddenly looked serious and warned So-min. Han Swang's body is already weak. Right now it seems to be getting worse and worse. Hearing what senior sister said, So-min was startled and frightened. At home right now, Han Swang is resting on the bed. Next to her is Tan Yen, who is extremely worried. Tan Yen sobbed and cried. Han Swang, try your best. So-min is coming soon. Even though Han Swang is weak, he still tries to reassure. Don't cry anymore. I just have a little illness. I can't die. Suddenly, a voice behind rang out. You definitely won't die. Tan Yen turned around and saw that So-min and Nam Lin had arrived. Nam Lin spoke up. This kid is here. So-min called out worriedly. That's senior sister. Han Swang was helped by Tan Yen to sit up. She smiled and said, quickly invite junior brother over. It seems that sixth senior sister still cares about me very much. Nam Lin replied coldly. I wish I could let you die sooner. So-min quickly approached to check Han Swang's pulse. Han Swang still tried to reassure his junior brother. Little junior brother, my illness is not a problem. Before he finished speaking, So-min interrupted. He said, I have moderation, sister, relax, otherwise the pulse will be wrong. So-min continued to check his pulse. It was only his vitality. His heart was damaged, and his physical condition was extremely cold. So-min finished with one sentence. The illness is very serious. These words made Kai Han Yen worried. He quickly asked his seventh sister. It wasn't that serious 2 days ago. What happened? Han Swang didn't say anything but just secretly looked at Nam Lin. Seeing that Han Swang did not dare to speak, Tan Yen spoke. Han Swang, she wants to help you. But before he could finish speaking, Han Swang stopped Tan Yen from speaking. So-min quickly explained. If we don't know the cause of the disease, we have no way to diagnose it accurately. Nam Lin then spoke. Because your seventh senior sister kneels before me. So-min was surprised and asked loudly. Kneel? Why? Nam Lin gently explained. Her heart is higher than the sky. Humbling herself to beg others feels even more unpleasant than being killed. But this time, because she wanted to save you, she was able to hold back. I really didn't expect it. After receiving the answer from senior sister, So-min thought to herself, so it's because of me. Senior sister 7 doesn't know martial arts, so she guesses that martial arts are also affected by physical condition. The only person who can really help me is senior sister 6. No wonder that day, Sister Luke also said that she owed the favor she saved me to that sister. After understanding the problem, So-min slowly walked to Han Swang and said, I already have the treatment method. But before that, I want to ask, 7th senior sister, is it necessary for you to give up your dignity for a junior brother you've only met a few times? Hearing So-min's question, Han Swang replied, You are wrong. We have met many times. Then she began to recount. When I met you, you were very young, basically can't remember. At that time, her great master told her, Han Swang, your 8th sister's future destiny is chaotic and unclear. Take good care of it. As a billion you must shoulder this responsibility. Han Swang immediately obeyed his master. Returning to the present, Han Swang continued. I am a sister, bowing for my younger brother is not difficult. So-min heard the words from the bottom of his sister's heart, and was moved to exclaim. Sister, the memories I have are in the mountains. I have no father or mother, only 7 masters. 7 masters in my memory, only when I went down the mountain, except for my master, I have never experienced the feeling of having relatives. Then he confessed. But today I have a sister. Kai Han Yen smiled when he heard So-min say that. So Min took a deep breath to feel the love his family had just received. Then he turned to instruct the two people behind him. Please come back, Senior Sister Luke and Sister Tan. I have to treat Senior Sister 7. Senior Sister Luke immediately pulled Tan Yen out of the room. As she turned to leave, Tan Yen asked herself, what treatment method do you still need to avoid? After both of them left the room, So Min seriously instructed. I must monitor the blood in your body and adjust your mood. Please, Senior Sister 7, be honest with me. Hearing that, Han Swang looked puzzled. Open your heart honestly, is that what you mean? So Min seriously asked. Senior Sister 7, do you need me to help you undress? Han Swang was immediately confused by his junior brother's suggestion. She hesitantly replied, I did it myself. At this time, Han Swang began to take off her clothes. Her face turned red, her big soul covered by the author's hand, making people feel heartbroken. So Min immediately turned away so Han Swang could take off his clothes. Outside at this time, Nam Lin was drinking water with Tan Yen. Nam Lin asked, what is your relationship with Han Swang? Tan Yen immediately replied, So Min asked me to treat Han Swang's extremely cold physical condition. Hearing that, Nam Lin wondered, are you physically positive? Tan Yen immediately nodded in confirmation. Immediately, Nam Lin entered a confused state. She drank water, but in her heart she was wondering, physically like a yang? I searched for more than 10 years, thousands of people went in and out of the martial arts hall, but I couldn't find a single person. Yet, less than a month after the little junior brother came down the mountain, he was able to find someone for Han Swang. His luck is indeed as extraordinary as his master said. Then she thoughtfully thought about herself. Since Han Swang accidentally disturbed my dantian, for nearly 5 years my martial arts cultivation has not changed at all. I have been stuck in this true atmosphere for many years. She looked intently at the glass of water, thinking to herself that perhaps So Min was the person who could change her destiny. Suddenly, Han Swang's cry rang out from inside the room, startling both Nam Lin and Tan Yen. Immediately, both ran into the room to see what happened. What caught their eyes at this moment was So Min using needles to treat a completely stripped Han Swang. All 4 people looked at each other dumbfounded, not knowing what to say. Immediately, Tan Yen and Nam Lin quickly apologized and disappeared from the room. Han Swang put her face down on the pillow and said embarrassedly, I'm so embarrassed. It was a bit painful just now, I couldn't stand it. So Min immediately replied, it's very normal. This acupuncture point, even if someone has high martial arts skills, still hurts to the point of making a sound. So Min suddenly had a question. Actually, I don't quite understand something. Han Yen immediately asked. What's going on? He asked Han Swang. Why did 6th Senior Sister have to force you to kneel down and beg before coming to save me? Han Swang lifted her hair and replied. It's a very long story. Then Han Swang began to recount. She used to be like me, a martial arts genius. But after entering the true air realm, for a long time, she did not have any breakthrough. At that time we were all in Zhangchao. I saw her suffering so much and wanted to help. The Dharma taught by Master 7 can improve martial arts energy gathering in the dantian, so I used this method to help her stimulate the dantian. A stream of magical energy passed into Nam Lin's body. She tried to absorb it, but something unfortunate happened. Nam Lin vomited blood immediately afterward. Perhaps because he was not proficient in learning the art and was too confident, Han Swang not only failed but was even affected by that technique, affecting Nam Lin's dantian. That's why since then, many years have passed, Nam Lin's martial arts have not changed at all. Han Swang said sadly. It was I who harmed your 6th sister. I feel sorry for her. That's why for many years, even though we were both in Zhangchao, I didn't have the face to go see her. This time. It's because you're in danger that I. After hearing this, So Min immediately wondered, Master 7 also taught me that technique. Logically speaking, there is no way to trigger it, nor would it create such serious consequences, right? Han Swang mused. I don't know why. Maybe it's because of my extremely cold constitution. So Min also had his own thoughts. Not right. Even though the extremely cold physical condition would affect the caster, at that time Senior Sister 7 was still young and her physical condition could not affect her to such an extent. After So Min finished inserting the last needle, he told Han Swang. Senior Sister 7, my needle is finished. Lie here quietly for a moment, I'll come see Senior Sister 6th. He stood up and said. Maybe there is a reverse method. Hearing that, Han Swang happily asked. Really? So Min then went out. Seeing this, Tan Yen immediately asked. Is Han Swang okay? So Min immediately replied. She needs to rest now. He turned to Nam Lin and said. Sister Luke, can I check your pulse? Nam Lin was surprised. Me? So Min sat down and replied. Yes. I have already heard what Senior Sister 7 said about your story. I want to try and see if I can help you. Hearing that, Nam Lin looked happy. Really? So Min carefully checked Nam Lin's pulse. Nam Lin sat still while his younger brother took his pulse and said. My dantian has been distorted for many years. Even the masters have no way. So Min was startled when he heard Dan dying being distorted. But you still have to check your pulse first. So Min felt his pulse and thought thoughtfully. It seems that this time I went down the mountain, the 7 masters also expected me to be able to solve the troubles for the sisters. After checking his pulse for a while, So-min realized that his spiritual energy was too pure. Compared to before, the spiritual energy Han Swang transmitted into his body was much hotter. Then So-min's eyes opened wide as if he had just realized something. He felt like there was something in senior sister Luke's dantian. Looks like there's a poisonous insect hiding inside. Nam Lin also felt something. She cried out in pain, causing Tan Yen beside her to ask worriedly. Miss Nam, are you okay? So-min also understood the problem. He frowned and said, So that's it? Nam Lin immediately asked. Little brother, what's going on? Why do I feel such intense pain? So-min stood up and replied. Senior sister Luke, you may have mistakenly blamed senior sister 7, So-min asserted. Your dantian was injured, causing you to not be able to improve your cultivation for many years. It was not caused by senior sister 7, Nam Lin worriedly asked. So what is the reason? So-min replied firmly. Someone cast a spell on you. Furthermore, he also took action when you were unprepared, opening the dantian for senior sister 7 to assist. Nam Lin exclaimed in shock. Spell? Who would poison me like that? So-min thoughtfully replied. For now, I still don't know. I can only feel that the spell in your body is very strong. After so many years, it has taken root in your dantian. Nam Lin cried out in panic. Growing roots? So-min frowned and replied. Yes. Furthermore, at most 2 years this spell will completely devour senior sister Luke's cultivation base. At that time, you will be completely crippled and live like a cripple. Tan Yen angrily shouted. Who is so cruel? I heard Han Swang talk about this. At that time you were only 16 or 17 years old. Was it necessary to poison little girls? Like that? So-min thought for a moment and then replied. I guess I can be your master's opponent. The 7 masters roamed the world during their youth. In each field they reached the realm of transformation. They are all people who have achieved sainthood. Of course there will be people who are jealous. So-min continued to explain. Before I went down the mountain, the 7 masters told me that their enemies were lined up from Nam Tien Man to the east of Bang Lai. Therefore, the explanation of the leaves for that Saint Tong is a very difficult matter. Nam Lin frowned and replied. If it's true, then those enemies didn't fight back against their masters, so they poisoned us to take revenge on them. How cruel, but it's okay, So-min has a way. He reassured his sister. But there is still a way. Just use special healing herbs to slowly reduce the impact. This spell can be lifted. Saying that, So-min sighed. He thought to himself. If my seal can be opened a few more levels, I can use true energy to attack my sister. But my current ability is limited. Hearing some hope, Nam Lin asked again. Is there really a way? What herbs are needed? So-min immediately replied. Herbs have some difficulties and are necessary. But before he could finish speaking, from behind, Han Swang hurriedly ran out to announce. Not good. Quickly take me to the company. Seeing Han Swang so impatient, So-min waved his hand to stop her and said. Sister 7, your current body cannot work, you need to rest. Han Swang shouted loudly and worriedly. Someone came to my company to cause trouble. They took advantage of the time I wasn't there to break HSL. Meanwhile, at Han Swang's HSL company, 2 flashily dressed thugs were questioning company employees. Who is the manager? Seeing that the female employee did not answer but only trembled in fear, the ringleader said. Your HSL borrowed 2,000 from us. Now we have to pay it back. The female employee trembled and replied. I don't know about this. Can I help you contact the company's finance department? Without letting the staff call, the leader waved his junior over and ordered. Looks like I can't get the money today. We brothers will destroy it. Following orders, his subordinates immediately destroyed furniture in the company's main lobby. Suddenly, a loud voice behind them shouted for them to stop. That's Han Swang. She has arrived. Followed by Tan Yen and So-min, the thug gave a sarcastic smile and said, Oh, President Kai, do you still dare to come? Ignoring Mr. Kai's presence, he continued to order his juniors. Brothers, destroy it. Let her see with her own eyes what happens when borrowing money and not paying back. Ha! Han Swang immediately shouted. Do-ho, stop! Even though she was in pain, Han Swang still tried to stop them. So-min rushed out to block in front of his sister and said, 7th sister, don't waste words on them. Leave it to me. Then he quickly threw a punch. One more permission. Fast as lightning, quickly defeating several of Do-ho's juniors. After defeating several of his juniors, So-min suddenly realized that although their blocking movements were very weak, they looked very familiar, very similar to the martial arts taught by the 6th master. Do-ho clenched his hands and prepared to fight. He said to So-min, This bodyguard of yours is fine. I'm here to fight you. He raised his voice to challenge So-min. If you defeat me, you'll be gone today. So-min scratched his ear and asked again. Are you sure? Do-ho clenched his fists in triumph. Of course. But if you lose, this debt must be paid twice. As he spoke, he was secretly arrogant. I am the top martial arts disciple in Zhang Chao. I just saw that kid make a move. It was just a little faster, no big deal. So-min scratched his head and provocatively replied. Come. Tell me, how should we fight? Du-ho immediately rushed forward and shouted. Let's start now. He attacked directly at the acupuncture point under So-min's armpit. Not dying but seriously injured, So-min said in surprise. Sneak attack? You're still too slow. Immediately, So-min punched Du-ho in the face with overwhelming speed. He was hit and immediately bled and trembled backwards. Immediately he shouted a warning. Wait for me. I'll call the master. So-min shyly scratched his head and asked. Do you still have a master? Then he walked closer to see who he was calling. Du-ho dialed the phone and said. Of course. She is the owner of the leading martial arts hall in Zhangchao. You are dead. After that he called his master crying. Master, please help me. There is someone here who wants to kill me. On this end of the line, a woman replied. I know. It turned out that his master was sixth sister Nam Lin. She calmly hung up on Du-ho. Nam Lin had been following Han Swang and immediately said to her. Han Swang, I have something to do, go first. You stay here. Seeing his master, Du-ho was startled and asked. Master, why are you here? So-min also wondered in surprise. Is senior sister Luke his master? Seeing that the vandal was his student, Nam Lin frowned and asked. Why is it you? She asked with a serious face. Aren't you practicing boxing today at the martial arts hall? Du-ho confusedly replied. Aren't you just going out for a meal? Nam Lin angrily shouted. Eat. Do you know whose company you are destroying? The CEO of this company is my junior sister. Du-ho was shocked at this time. He was startled. Mr. Kai is your junior sister? Nam Lin continued to say. At first, you were hunted and killed when you practiced black magic. If I hadn't taken action, you would have died long ago. Today you attacked my junior sister again. Do you want to return the favor with resentment? Du-ho waved his hand and shook his head. No. I really don't know the